I'm Stephanie Townsend Ayala, your video host for the El Paso Eldercare channel. Today, we're joined by Sylvia Martinez. She's the administrator for Altomar Home Health Care here in El Paso. Welcome to the show. Sylvia, thank you so much for coming in. Tell me a little bit, Altomar is a very well-known home health care agency in town, but when people are choosing home health care agencies, usually it's under stress. So that's a hard time to choose healthcare agencies. What are some of the things you want to tell people to plan for in the future?
Well, they need to talk about it first, about, where, what's going to happen if somebody gets sick. Where do they have all the important papers? Because otherwise, people are scrounging around throughout the house trying to find important documents. Like what we need is we're going to need their social security card, a copy of their Medicare card so we can verify their numbers, and an ID. But a lot of times people don't know where it's kind of a, like, why do you want to know my financial stuff? Like,
Yeah.
and it's a secret, and it's like, I need to know because you're in the hospital, and
So the parents are being secretive and the children are trying to help,
and we're really trying to help.
So it's a good idea to have that discussion before the parents are sick.
Yes.
So if you have a parent or a loved one, then you sit down with them and find out where are your important documents. What are the other important documents? Like, what about a healthcare power of attorney? Do you always ask for that?
Yes, we always ask for that.
And how important is the healthcare power of attorney?
It's very important because we want to know how far to go when they get sick. I mean, do they want us to go all the way, or do they want us for us to just support them and for them to die naturally? So, I mean,
in the business we call it no coding.
Yeah.
And the no code means that somebody has maybe gotten to the end of their life and doesn't really want all of the added stressors of the miracles of modern medicine.
Yeah.
Sometimes you call it death by medicine, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, but the most important part, I think, of the home healthcare industry is that the goal is to keep our loved ones at home.
Yes.
And do you find people fairly realistic about this possibility?
Sometimes I think that there's limitations, and there's different kinds of home health care. There's home health care where they're supportive, where we just skilled care. Skilled care is the nurse goes in and does some teaching, or she does a skill like do a dressing change or administer a medication. Now that's a skilled care for a nurse or an LVN or wound care. They do a dressing change. And then there's physical therapy, like if they have surgery, we can send the physical therapist to the home until they get stronger and they're able to go to outpatient clinic. In the very first days after surgery, I mean, it seems like you just barely walk in and 2 or 3 days later you're out. And and it's really hard on the family because they can't move in and out of the car or into the bathroom. It's a big stressor. And so we provide like home health aides that can help with the bathing, and then we have the therapists that go in and do a strengthening program at home for them to get stronger every day. And so that's skill. But then there's the provider cares, which is
like sitter services.
And
they'll come clean the house or even make food, cook home cooked meals.
And there's other agencies that do that, but we don't do that. So we have to be clear when they first come on that
you're skilled.
That what we can provide and what we cannot provide.
Okay, so you guys are skilled. So what are some of the other important documents that the family members should gather together perhaps before the emergency?
They should always know where their parents' insurance information is. And then also what their parents stand at as far as like I said earlier, if they want to be a full code or do not resuscitate.
Let's talk about that a little bit. A lot of people are confused about it. What you're talking about could be handled by a living will or a healthcare directive to physicians.
Yes.
You're talking about a situation where somebody's saying, I don't want to have machines keeping me alive any longer. I don't want to be kept alive by extraordinary means any longer. And so I always try to get people to put it in writing.
Yes.
So that's where the lawyer comes in and we say, okay, I hear your words and you've spoken to your family, but that's not good enough. Under the law, you have to have it in black and white.
Yes.
So how do you help people walk through that?
Well, we have to have a family discussion, not just with the spouse, but also with the family, as far as because at the very, but that doesn't mean in healthcare that they can't receive care.
Right.
They can still have care, but just how far can they go? That has to be discussed with the family because it's horrible when the wife understands and the husband understands, and here comes a relative or a son who hasn't seen their dad, who's kind of been like removed from the family and doesn't know what's been going on and all the struggles that they've been through, and they say, oh, Mom, how can you do that? You're trying to kill them, and I'm like, no, they're not. We're trying to respect their wishes.
We did that with my mom. My mom died peacefully at my sister's home after 3 years of struggling after a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, my mom had just said, I don't want to eat anymore, and I want to be with Jesus. She kept saying, I just want to be with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, we let her be, and we just and it was painful.
Yeah.
And it's called the long goodbye for a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also loving.
It's a very respectful kind of thing, and it's a very natural thing, and it's not something to be afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people think that, and it's just like birth is natural. I mean, you'll always find somebody having a baby within that first, and it's like, that there's that renewed hope, when someone else in the family has a baby during that time, because it's a very natural thing, and it's not to be. I think the more you talk about it, the less scary it is, because then it's you're not the only one that's going through that struggle. There's other families in that situation, and it's okay to ask for help.
Talking about it really does help.
Yes, and it does help because we have social workers also that are available that can help you talk through the process as far as, if you want to keep the person at home and you want to be supportive, or you think that it's too much. It's too much. When you get to be like, the spouse is 90 and the other spouse is 86, 87, they're real frail and their own illnesses too. You have to think about the whole situation.
It's interesting you brought that up, because I had a recent case where I helped a family member create some powers of attorney for the brother who was very ill and had a terrible disease. And so when the brother went into the hospital, his agent called me and said, do I pull the plug? What do I do? And I was like, well, is he still thinking? Can he still, have a straight mind? And he was like, yes. I said, well, let him decide that.
Yeah.
You don't decide. As long as somebody can think about it and have express an opinion. And he did, by the way, that family member, he did after a week or so, he asked them to take him off the machines, and he made his own choice. So it's really hard, but like you said, I mean, a lot of people don't want to talk about death, which is one of the only sure things in life.
Yes.
And I have people come in and say, oh, Mommy, don't make a will. I'm so afraid if you make your will, you're suddenly going to get sick and die.
No. I think it's what's nice about having a will and discussing these kind of things. It's out in the open. It's not a big secret, as far as what your wishes are, and I think that some people are going to fight to the end. They want everything done to the very end until there's no more, there's nothing else left. And then there's other people that's like, what? It depends on their age too. I mean, we have to think about it, obviously, but
someone whose life is cut short in the prime of their life, it's such a tragedy. But like for my mom, she was in her 80s and she felt like she had lived a good life.
Yeah, and that's fine. It shows a lot of love to respect their wishes and to support them in what their desire is. It's just
what happens when you have situations where nobody did anything and they can't talk anymore and there's nothing written. I mean, what kind of problems does it create for you as a healthcare provider when people don't do their legal work?
We have to go all the way, and we keep supporting them, and we keep.
You can't no code them. You have to.
We have to
give them all you got.
Yeah.
Even that it means breaking their chest cavity, if it means crushing their lung, I mean, whatever it takes, you have to go for it.
Yeah, we have to go all the way.
Oh, that's so sad. So, what advice do you have then for family members who are, no one ever plans to be catastrophically ill, but we have to make it. It's a reality of our lives now.
Mhm.
What advice do you have when somebody's thinking about looking for the right home healthcare agency? A lot of people don't like strangers coming into their home. How can you make them feel better about that?
They have a choice on where they want to go. If they want to go to somebody that somebody else took care of them and they come with recommendations, that's fine. And even with the healthcare givers, there's some people that within their own culture, they want to stay within that culture because we have the military and we have people that have been born and raised here yet have never learned English and they've only speak Spanish. They can request that they only have Spanish-speaking caregivers, or they can request that, someone within their culture, if we can, at all possible, we'll respect that too.
Wow, that's and very sensitive topics and issues that you have to talk with people. How do you start these sensitive conversations?
we kind of find it by accident, because we'll have we have a nurse with a very thick accent, and he's Cuban, and it's like, send me somebody who speaks English, and I'm like, he was speaking English.
My mom reverted to Spanish after her stroke too.
Yeah. So it'd be like, okay, and that's okay. I mean, then we send somebody that we know that they'll be comfortable speaking to. And
one of the things that my mom would get upset about is if somebody pronounced her name wrong. She wanted it pronounced, Gloria, and it had to be pronounced correctly. So, I mean, there's certain things that when you get older, you have these things you obsess on, and so you have to address that.
Yeah, and you know what? They're 70, 80, 90 years old, and that's the way they've always been, and that's the way they're going to be. So, you just, hey, that's what you want? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And, I mean, I had my mom, too, as a care, we had to provide care for her, and she burned both of her legs cooking. She was taking a brisket out of the oven that had been at 300 degrees overnight, and then it had all these juices, and then she went, and then all the juices came down and it burned both of her legs, and so.
How long was she incapacitated?
It was only, I mean, in retrospect, it was a month. It was about 4 weeks. But they were the longest 3 to 4 weeks that we all had because, she's the strong one. And it was like, she's the matriarch. She's the one that runs the family. And all of a sudden to have her, in bed and dependent on somebody else, it was like, I mean, we were just.
Mamas and matriarchs don't make good patients. They're used to giving all their lives.
Yes.
And when it's time to serve them, they have trouble.
And she had a hard time just kicking back and relaxing, and you need to have your feet up. You need to, do what the doctor says. And she wanted to get up, but like, no, you need to rest. And it's a different situation, because you always see other people going through that, but when it's your own family, you're really tender and you're real.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. And a lot of people say, oh, I would do this and I would do that. But when it happens to them, it's a whole different story.
You mentioned earlier about the kid who hasn't seen dad who suddenly has a plan on how to treat dad. And, it's so funny because I like to say that usually in families, and just, I'm from the border. We're all from the border. I was born and raised on the border. And our families have a way of our families are involved. We have big families and we have lots of people who want to get involved. And if we have to keep grandpa on, a hospital bed in the living room, we're going to do that because that's what we have to do because there's no other way to do it. We want to take care of him. And we, mostly El Paso has one of the lowest rates of nursing home admissions in the entire state of Texas. I don't know why that is, but El Pasoans, we keep our family at home. I mean, even sometimes to the detriment, because it can be hard sometimes, especially keeping a family member with dementia at home can be hard. What are some of the things that you guys treat? Dementia, is that something that you're able to treat at home?
We actually had a client in New Mexico because we also serve the Sunland part in the border.
Doña Ana County.
And so we had this poor man that had dementia, and his wife was the strong one. She's the one that took care of everything. And one day she just was working, doing some kind of volunteer work, and she had a stroke and she passed away. And I was like, what do we do with him? We were just scratching our heads thinking like, oh my God, she's been the rock. She's been the one that has kept that man in play, together. And so we really had to, and then he wandered away too. It was like,
Oh,
and it was like,
goodness.
where did he go? And no, he had a history of doing that. So he said, let me just go find my family. And
Right.
we're like, but they had never mentioned it. So he kept saying, just follow me. And he kept walking and walking. And we did get to a family member that lived about 2 or 3 blocks away.
So he remembered,
He remembered
where it was.
where that was. And it's like, they can help me find her. And I was like,
Oh, bless his
it's kind of like
heart.
hard to.
Well, and so that's the key, is that you are a key element in our healthcare for this generation of baby boomers who are aging out. I mean, the key words in our business is least restrictive means. We're always using those terms. What's the least restrictive means to take care of somebody? What's the least restrictive means in terms of home? And so you're the last saving grace to keep us at home. You're our last hope to stay home. And when we can't stay home any longer, it's a nursing home after that.
Yeah.
So did this gentleman have to go to a nursing home?
He actually ended up being placed in they were actually he actually had a sister.
Oh, so family stepped in. I'm speaking with Sylvia Martinez, administrator at Altomar Home HealthCare. And Sylvia, we were talking about some of the misconceptions and difficulties family have. Can you tell me a little bit about some advice? Give some advice for folks who are thinking about their parents' future or their children who might have severe disabilities. What advice do you have in terms of trying to find comfort and trying to make sure you have a place to go to in an emergency?
Have that conversation with them early on as far as where they want to be or where they see themselves with this illness, recovering from it, giving into it, but also knowing where all the paperwork and all the important.
That's a good idea. Let's review the documents that are important that you will ask for when we meet you. What do you ask for immediately?
A copy of their ID, their driver's license, and their Medicare card.
Or passport.
And their insurance card, any kind of supplemental insurance they might have.
Okay.
And also we work through a doctor's prescription. The doctor has to give us the okay to go into the home and do the evaluation.
Perfect. And then also there's the legal documents you ask for. What are the legal documents you ask for?
If they have a power of attorney, if they have a living will, we want to see it. We want to see it, and we want to make a copy of it so we can have one for our records. So,
and what happens when they don't have that?
We ask them to discuss that with them, as far as, what do you want us to do? Do you want to be a full code? Do you want to be a do not resuscitate? And then that always kind of like, what does that mean? And we do have a little small discussion about that. And most of the time, they already know something about it because of another family member or because of something that they watched on TV.
And again, full code means that you have to go give all extraordinary means available under medicine, and then a no code or DNR. That means that somebody has chosen to go peacefully and doesn't really want all those machines at the last time of death.
Yes.
And that's hard to explain, isn't it?
Yes. Especially like, why are you asking me that? I thought you were going to just teach me about my diabetes. And I'm like, no, we're just in case, something were to happen.
People don't like to talk about it.
No.
And so what advice do you give them?
Just to be realistic about what they want, what their desires are, what their wishes are, and as far as do they want to get better, but there every once in a while you get somebody who's stubborn and is like, I want to do things my way, and if that means that I eat sugar all the time and drink Cokes and I'm diabetic and I don't follow my diet and I'm gonna die happy and like
Well, there's no law against doing that to yourself.
But then instead at the other thing is it's like we're there to educate them,
right,
and to explain how things interact with how medications and how food can help you and hurt you. But when we go through the admission process, the assessment, we go through various questions as far as their health goes, their previous history, their present condition, and the medications. A lot of times people don't know how one medication affects the other medications or precautions that they need to be aware of.
You guys have to watch out for the interactions.
Yes.
In fact, sometimes the doctors they don't even know what they're all doing, but you guys do.
Yes, because they'll go from one doctor to another doctor, and they don't tell the other doctor what they're taking. Say they go to a rheumatologist or for arthritis, and then they go to their regular cardiologist, and certain medications aren't a good combination together. Mm-hmm. So at home we see the whole picture. We see the medicine cabinet that we just like, let me see here. You've had this since 2008. It's about time you threw this one out.
Right.
We're 2014 now.
Well, let's talk a minute about something that's really probably one of the most horrible, devastating points of your job is when you have to tell the family members that they can't stay home anymore. When does that happen? And what usually is the indicator that somebody, even though we do focus on the least restrictive means, mm-hmm. in this situation, the least restrictive means a nursing home. When does that happen, and how is that transition for your families?
We start talking about that when we start seeing increased incidences of them getting hurt. Say if they have
those are always a red flag.
Yeah, falls. There are an increased number of falls or injuries that like they've fallen and they've been on the floor for 2 days before somebody comes and checks on them, or they send someone out to check on them, and we've had that more than once in our agency where we say, like, we know they live alone and we can see that the patient's on the floor, and we have to call 911.
Of course, you have your rules.
Yeah, and we can't just go into the house. But once that happens, it's like, it's not safe anymore. I mean, you see, you've been. How long have you been on the floor? It could have been just an hour. It could have been a day or two. Mm-hmm. And
so that's a real immediate danger.
Yeah. And when they can no longer take care of themselves safely, and they don't have a backup plan. I mean, there's things that they can do, like the alerts, things that they can buy, they can press. But also having, now everybody has a cell phone, but sometimes you need to have a working telephone at home, because what if the battery runs out?
Correct.
Those kind of things that people don't think about. And then their phone numbers, because if they're starting to get too forgetful and they're not safe in taking care of their medications, and like, that is one of the biggest things that we have, is to make sure that they're taking their medicine safely, because either they don't take it or they take too many at one time.
They forget they took it, and then they double up.
Yeah.
That's just as dangerous as not taking it.
Yes.
But that's interesting. So when you get to that point with a family that they just can't stay in the home anymore, what is the most difficult part of that conversation?
It's the
where do you go now?
It's the realization that they have lost their independence now, and that they need someone to always be watching them, 24/7.
Nobody wants that.
No. And they say, I can do it, and it's like, no, but remember that you fell down last week and that you didn't take your medicine, and when it starts to really affecting their health negatively,
you can tell.
Yeah. Or they haven't bathed, and you go in, it's like, it's been 3 days, and we also even go to the point sometimes to check the refrigerator, see what's, do they have food, and when, has anybody been by to take them to go buy groceries. And it's really sad, you know,
It is.
when you go, well, you know, I didn't want to bother anybody, and it's like, but you know, speak up, you know, we're here to help you. If you don't, we'll find someone to help, and we'll send a social worker to go out there and see what they can do.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to get back and kind of back up a little bit, talking again when we started this conversation about some of the things you do. The language that we use in our business in elder law, in elder care, it's ADLs, activities of daily living, bathing, toileting, transferring, dressing, eating, taking your medications. And so if you need help with like 3 or more of those, what are some of the things that you use, the descriptors you use to explain that?
Well, it's their basic needs. They're, like you said, the activities of daily living. I mean, basic needs like taking a shower. And if you can't take a shower safely,
you need help.
You need help. And we're struggling with a family member right now, and he doesn't like to take a bath. But he can't do it safely either. And it's just like, it's difficult because they have to be willing to accept the help. And also, like, who's going to prepare the food for them, you know, because it's nice when they have a husband and wife, but then when one of them passes away, and say the husband's been dependent for the wife to be doing all the cooking and the laundry, they're really lost.
Yeah.
There's certain things like they magically happen, like you open the drawers and the laundry's, you know, clean and it's there, and
fairies came in overnight and did it.
And it was the wife all these years, and it's like they don't know, you know, where to start, and usually they end up either at a family member's house or they're having to think about maybe being in an assisted living.
That's another option as well.
Yeah.
And you guys provide services at assisted living as well. You'll go into independent apartment living centers and you'll provide services there.
Yes.
And well, that is so fascinating. I have to tell you, it's been a real eye-opener for me to talk with you and kind of hear about your work. There's a lot of heroes, it sounds like, that work at your place. I think that the people who are providing direct contact care to the elderly and disabled are heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, for by and large, they're doing it out of love and cariño and because they're really, you know, want to help people. I mean, that's kind of the common thread among people in elder care is that you really have a service kind of heart. And, you know, is that something that led you to this?
Yes. I always wanted to help other people and, you know, within our own family. My father was ill at 54, he passed away. But he went through a process where he wasn't able to take care of himself. He ended up in a wheelchair and on dialysis. And the thing is that that was our first experience in having somebody sick, and we were still a young family, and we had to pull together and help, you know, our parents out. And that was 30 years ago.
Wow, so that impacted your decision, your whole life trajectory.
Yeah,
That's
it sure
amazing.
It did.
And how long have you been in this industry then?
Yeah, I've been a nurse now for 34 years.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, I'm really dating myself.
But I just want to say, you know, I really appreciate what you're doing, and it's so important to have honest, caring people in this business because the folks who are in need are so greatly in need. But I just want to say thank you for joining the El Paso Eldercare channel today and being my guest again. Today we've been speaking with Sylvia Martinez, administrator for Altomar Home Healthcare Agency. Thank you so much for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.